There's a small window in early June that matters more than most, at least for us here at Two Sisters Flower Farm. Now, it's not marked in any calendar, and honestly, it never comes with much warning. But when the timing lines up, when the field's been prepped, the forecast is calling for rain, and the soil finally feels warm enough, well, that's when we plant our pumpkins. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Pumpkins? On a flower farm? But for us, this one crop plays a much bigger role than most people realize. I'll share more on that in just a bit, but first, let's talk about why this planting window matters so much. So right now it's early June, and I've been watching the weather forecast pretty obsessively because pumpkins, well, they're a crop that needs time. Most varieties, they take somewhere between 90 and 100 days to mature, and we aim to have pumpkins ready by early September, right when we open our fall farm stand. I know that might sound early to some people, but over the years, we've noticed a shift. Our community seems to get into the fall spirit earlier and earlier. And honestly, I don't blame them. Once school starts back up, people want their mums and decorative pumpkins so they can set up their porch displays and actually enjoy them for a while. They might not be shopping for jack-o'-lanterns just yet, but the fall vibes, well, they're definitely happening. So in order to have mature pumpkins by then, our planting window closes around June 10th. And here's where it gets tricky. You see, we grow pumpkins at scale, about 5 acres worth. That's a lot of ground to manage. Unlike backyard growers, we can't rely on methods like landscape fabric or hand hoeing every row. There just aren't enough hours in the day or people on our team to stay ahead of the weeds on that kind of scale. So instead, we rely on something called a pre-emergent herbicide. It's a liquid spray that we apply after planting, and it helps prevent weeds from germinating in the first place, giving our pumpkin plants a chance to get established without competition. But there's a catch. For it to work, we need about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of rain within 48 hours of application. No rain, no activation. No activation, no weed control. And too many weeds can easily choke out our pumpkins, leading to a poor harvest come fall. And here's the kicker. Our pumpkin field? Well, it's not irrigated, so this moisture quite literally needs to come from Mother Nature herself. Now, every time I share how our pumpkins aren't irrigated, that seems to surprise a lot of people. But for me, it's not all that unusual. You see, I grew up working on a farm that raised crops like corn, soybeans, wheat, and alfalfa. And here in our region, irrigation on large-scale plantings, it just isn't the norm. Like a lot of farmers, we've always relied on what the season gives us. So fast forward to today, and what I'm looking for, what I wait and watch for, is that narrow window where the field is dry enough to plant, but rain is coming soon enough to activate the pre-emergent. It's a balancing act, a small window, but when we catch it just right, it sets a tone for the rest of the season. So, like I said, it's early June. Specifically, it's Monday, June 2nd, and I've been watching the forecast all week. Now you can see here that rain is expected on Wednesday. But since the conditions today are great for planting, we're getting the pumpkin planter out and putting seed in the ground today. Now, when it comes time to actually spray, I work with our neighbor who runs a large-scale veggie farm just down the road. They grow hundreds of acres of squash, not just 5 like we do, so they have the equipment and experience to get it done right. So he'll be handling the pre-emergent application for us, and by planting today, we're giving him enough of a window to make it over to us and get our field sprayed before the rain hopefully hits. Okay, let me show you the pumpkin planter that we'll be using today. So we were lucky enough to snag this planter at an equipment auction about 2 years ago. Before that, we used to use a single row planter. It was simple and definitely better than planting by hand, but I'll admit, it was still a slow, tedious process. Planting pumpkins, it used to take us 12 to 14 hours, and by the end of it, you felt every bit of that in your bones. So when this planter came up for auction, honestly, I wasn't sure that we'd be able to afford it. It was in really great condition, almost too good to be true. And while it's technically a corn planter, I'm sure you can see that right away, it did come with squash plates. So rather than running seed in all 6 rows, we actually use every other row. So we're essentially working with a 3-row pumpkin planter. Now, somehow, I still don't believe it, I was the winning bid on this piece of equipment. And I was completely shocked, especially when I realized that we got it for just $1,000. I never imagined that it would go that cheap. But this has been one of the best purchases we've made for the farm. These days, planting pumpkins takes an hour, maybe 2 max. And since this planter uses vacuum plates, it's incredibly precise. So here's a closer look at how it works. Vacuum pressure is applied to one side of the seed plate, pulling individual seeds into each hole. When the plate rotates and the seed reaches the drop tube, the vacuum cuts off and the seed falls down into the soil at a controlled depth. Spacing is determined by both the holes in the plate, and then there's sprockets in the chain drive that we can adjust to. This precision has made a huge difference. In fact, the first year that we used this planter, I genuinely thought something had gone wrong. We used so much less seed than usual that I was worried I'd missed a step. But sure enough, when the rows started popping up, the germination was strong, the spacing was right, and the crop looked beautiful. Now, of course, germination is also affected by things like weather and soil conditions, but there's no denying that upgrading to this planter has been a blessing. It's made our planting process faster, more efficient, and a whole lot more reliable. So earlier this morning, we finished prepping this field. We tilled the soil to break up any surface level weeds and disrupt any weed seeds that are still sitting in that top layer. The goal is to give our pumpkins a clean start with as little competition as possible in these first few critical weeks. We also applied fertilizer because pumpkins are heavy feeders. They require a lot of nutrients to grow healthy vines and produce full-size fruit. So starting with a well-balanced, nutrient-rich soil gives them the best chance to thrive. And now that the field is ready, well, it's time to load up the planter and start getting seed in the ground. When it comes to pumpkin seed, we order from a variety of companies. Osborne Seeds, Goen, and Holmes are a few of my favorites. But honestly, there are plenty of great sources out there, and if you're just getting started, I'd say go with whatever is most accessible and affordable for you. As I've mentioned before, we really focus on decorative pumpkins. While we do grow some jack-o'-lantern types, the bulk of what we plant are the pretty, the warty, the whimsical kinds that people love using to decorate their porches and entryways. Our target market, even when it comes to pumpkins, is very similar to the one that we serve with our flowers. Mostly women in the 35 to 45 age range, and often older, who love celebrating the season and creating beauty in their homes. We certainly welcome families during the fall season, and it's always fun to see kids loading up on all the pumpkins, but we don't really operate like an agritourism farm. We don't host field trips or big group events like some of the larger operations in our area. Instead, we've designed our space to feel peaceful, accessible, and inspiring. More of a seasonal experience than a themed attraction. Because of that, we plant a wide range of decorative varieties. And if you're curious about the specific types we grow, well, I've actually shared a full list in a blog post, and I'll link that for you in the description box below. Now, as you'll probably notice in this video, I do mix plenty of our seed while planting. I don't keep every variety separated row by row, but I will sort them by size. So I'll load this planter about 4 different times throughout the process. Once for jack-o'-lanterns, once for large decorative varieties, then medium decorative, and finally small and mini pumpkins. The field won't be perfectly sorted by variety, but since pumpkins tend to vine every which way anyway, it's not something that I worry too much about. What matters more is grouping them by size, so when it's time to harvest, we're pulling from sections of the field where the pumpkins are roughly similar in scale, even if they're a mix of color, texture, and type. Now that the planter is rolling, I want to take a moment to zoom out and share why we grow pumpkins in the first place. Because you might be wondering, why pumpkins? What role do they play in a flower farm? Well, part of it comes down to how we've intentionally built this business. When I started Two Sisters Flower Farm, it was because I was tired of living a life at such a rushed pace. I wanted something different for myself, and for me, flowers were the answer. Over the years, I've loved building a business around that passion, and understand that my goal was always to create something that could support me full time. That was my definition of success. And while I know that's not everyone's dream, it was mine. But that dream came with a caveat. I never wanted to build something so big that it needed a huge team to keep it running. In fact, my hope has always been to create a business that I could manage mostly on my own. Maybe with a few helpers here and there, but not something that would consume every corner of my life. One of the things I love most about our farm is that it's small, and I want to keep it that way. So while there are a million ways that we could grow the business, we found that expanding our fall season, instead of just increasing the volume of what we were already doing in summer, well, it's made the most sense for us. And pumpkins give us that ability. They offer a higher profit margin than most of our summer crops. They've got a longer shelf life, and the way we sell them, through our self-serve farm stand, well, it means it takes far less labor to move product. Given the resources we have, pumpkins are simply more scalable. And for a small flower farm like ours, that's key. Pumpkins, they help us grow in a way that feels sustainable and align with the kind of life that I'm trying to build. But that doesn't mean that pumpkins are always easy. In fact, I'd say they're one of the riskiest crops we grow simply because of the scale that we're growing them at. There's a lot that can go wrong. So right now it's Tuesday. We planted the pumpkin field yesterday, and the forecast still shows rain coming tomorrow. Although, I'll be honest, the sky is dark right now. It could rain even sooner. But this means that our window to get this pre-emergent sprayed is today. The only problem is that our spray operator, well, he's working on some of his own fields much further north of us, and he's not sure that he'll be able to make it back here to us in time. And even if he can come today, the wind is brutal and it's not cooperating, and it's just not safe to spray in these conditions. There's too much risk of drift and overspray, and that's something we absolutely won't mess around with. So the stress right now is real. And honestly, I know to the average person looking in at this process, you may not understand why the stakes feel so large in this moment, but I do, because I know what it's like when this process doesn't work. You see, there was a time a few years ago where we missed it. The pre-emergent didn't activate like it was supposed to. And I don't remember if the rain came too late or if the conditions weren't quite right, but the weeds took off. I tried my best to stay ahead of them. I hoed as much as I could that season, but we didn't have a cultivator back then, and I didn't know anyone nearby who could help. And honestly, the patch was just too big for one person to manage. No matter how hard I worked, the weeds, they outpaced me. They actually grew taller than me, and I remember walking those rows and thinking, there's no way anything is surviving in there. And it was defeating, watching a field I'd worked so hard to plant get swallowed up by weeds, knowing there wasn't much I could do to turn it around. But then, much to my surprise, after countless weeks of worry and more than a few sleepless nights, we started to find pumpkins hidden beneath those towering weeds they've been growing all along. We harvested that patch that season. It wasn't pretty, the picking was grueling, but we made it through. And after that season, I made myself a promise: never again. Now, in the years since, I wouldn't say that I stopped worrying, but I have learned to hold things a little bit more loosely, because that's farming. You do your part, you make the best decisions you can with the information you have, and then you release the rest. There are always going to be things outside of my control, especially when it comes to the weather. That's the risk and the reward of farming. It's beautiful when everything lines up just right, and it's incredibly trying when it doesn't. But I've learned to focus on what I can control and give the rest to God. I may not be able to predict exactly what happens after this field is planted and sprayed, but right now, in this moment, I can do my best. I can show up, watch the forecast, line things up as best I can, and trust that the effort matters. Because what we do now, it's what gives us our best shot at a successful fall. Okay, so it is currently 8 p.m. at night, and I just got the text I've been waiting for all day. Our spray operator, he is on his way. Thankfully, the wind finally died down, and our spray guy will be here in about 35 minutes. I'll admit, after a full day of uncertainty, this honestly feels like such a relief. So right now, we're gonna go meet him in the field and show him which areas to spray. Sometimes farming is just a series of small moments like this, where everything hinges on timing, patience, and a little help from someone who shows up at just the right time. Watching the sprayer roll through the field, knowing those seeds are in the ground and the pre-emergent is being applied under the right conditions, it's the best case scenario. Now, it still doesn't guarantee a perfect season, but it gives us a fighting chance, and that's everything. And just like the weather forecast predicted, well, it's now Wednesday, June 4th, and we're starting to get some rain. Now, I know it might not seem like much, just a bit of water on a field, but after the past few days of watching the weather, texting back and forth, waiting for the wind to settle, this feels like a small but mighty victory, because this is what activates our pre-emergent. This is what gives those tiny seeds their best shot. Farming is never a guarantee, but it's moments like this, when everything lines up, that remind me why I keep showing up. The window was small, the pressure was real, but we did our part. And the rest? The rest we trust to time and to nature and to grace. There's still a long season ahead, but tonight I can rest a little easier knowing that we gave these pumpkins the best start that we could. So there you have it, the start of our fall season. Every season brings its own unique set of challenges and small victories, and pumpkins are no exception. I'm actually so grateful to be able to share this part of the journey with you. And if this kind of slow, seasonal rhythm resonates with you, well, I'd love to have you as part of our community here. Be sure to hit that subscribe button below, because in our next video, I'll be sharing more about the potted mums that we grow alongside these decorative pumpkins and how they work together to create a full, vibrant fall season here at our farm. And since I mentioned earlier that my goal was to always build a business that could support me full time, if you're curious about what that path has looked like, well, I've linked a video right here that dives deeper into that part of the story. You'll see it here in the end card in just a sec. Let me just say thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and I can't wait to catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.